Welcome. I tell you what, I am so excited about today's podcast. We're going to be talking about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, staying in faith. I'd like to welcome Jodie. Jodie, thank you for being here with me today. You make this so much easier.
Oh my gosh, I love hanging out with you, Deb. And I love too that I don't know when people will get to listen to this, but it's such a great topic today because it's Holy Week for us. And so, before we know it, we're going to celebrate Easter. But like people say, every week should be like Easter week.
Yeah, yeah. I hadn't totally not even connected the fact. I mean, yes, it's Sunday is Easter, but I hadn't connected the two with the topic for today. So, yeah.
Yeah, and by the time people listen to this, it'll be after Easter. But man, like people say, how many pastors have told us, every week should be Easter week. Every time that you are, processing your faith and thinking about your faith, it's important to remember Sunday, Friday and Sunday. So yeah.
Definitely, definitely. Well, and you know what goes along with remembering that, Jody, is the fact that so many people struggle with doubt. Their
Yeah.
faith isn't where they want it to be. Why do you think that is?
I just think that life is difficult, don't you? I mean, we all go through things. And how many of us think in the beginning of our walk, man, I could take on anything. I could take on Goliath. And then you go through something either that's so personal or so hurtful, or maybe you're hurt by somebody who says they're a Christian, and then all of a sudden that doubt creeps in. And then you struggle, right? So I think that's part of it. I think life is hard.
Well, definitely it can be. And I think a lot of that life is hard comes with our own attitude and our own perspective. How are we facing those struggles when they come to us? I know a lot of us grow up. I grew up in the Methodist church. I can't say that we went every Sunday, can't remember for sure. And most certainly it wasn't a born again active faith that I have now. But we all grow up with those negative voices, whether it was our parents, it might have been peers or siblings that say things to us. And those voices stay in our head. They stay in our head forever. And a lot of times when those doubts come, it's those voices that we're hearing, or, it could be just a voice of the devil, for that matter, throwing thoughts in your head. So it's just really important to have tools in place for when you get to those points in time when it's like, okay, gee, I woke up, I feel crappy today. What am I going to do?
So that's the question, right? Like how do we deal with doubt when it creeps in?
You have to be prepared. Be prepared. You put tools in place ahead of time. And the very first tool is that you make the decision that I am not going to let this voice send me down the wrong path. You make a decision, I'm going to walk in faith. I am going to hang on to God. And I didn't realize that that's what I did when all that stuff came out with my husband. And the first couple of mornings he's in jail and my daughter's in the mental hospital, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh. But I made a decision that next morning. I said, we are going to get through this, and we're going to get through it with God's help. And that decision is what helped carry me all the way through for 3 years. I mean, it was a 3-year struggle before I came out on the other side of that tunnel. But making that decision from day one is what grounded me to get through it. And it will ground everybody, because making the decision is the most important part of the journey. I will do this.
Yes, absolutely. And what's crazy is that we always think, oh, let's get prepared for those moments of doubt that we undeniably will have if we go through something spectacular. But I have to say, this is strange. And I don't know why I happen to be like this or my faith is like this. But when something really big happens, I tend to feel like, okay, God, I accept it. And I tend to like move on in a very pragmatic way. Whereas when the little things happen, that's what gets me. I really struggle with the little things. Are you the same way?
Yeah, probably. And I think a lot of that is, when you think about, okay, the big things are obvious. It's like, I am not going to let, this catastrophe thwart me. But we run into the little things all day long, and they just sort of mount up, and we don't give them much thought. That's the thing, is that we don't stop to think about it and make a specific choice. So yeah, the little things can really get to you.
Those are the things that seem like they're within our control, right? It's like,
Yes,
really?
yes,
Really? You're not
definitely.
going to answer my email for 2 weeks? Really? Those are like the things that are in our control. They're in our control. And it's almost like we don't feel like we need to trust God with those things. But how many times have we heard, trust Him in the little things, and the big things will be, your faith will
Yeah.
be, insurmountable. But it's just so difficult. The other thing that's hard is when it hurts so bad. I know so many people who have dealt with a parent being sick or losing a parent, and that's probably one of the biggest struggles that I've been through. And I know that it feels like, why? You ask God, why? Why would this happen? Why now? Why so young? Why cancer? We don't get those answers immediately, and we may never get those answers.
Mhm.
And I think that's the thing where doubt creeps in, and you're just like, it's almost like with your doubt, the sister or the brother is anger. And that's tough. So, what do you tell people who are going through things like this? Like, what advice do you have as a friend, as a mom?
The first thing, probably the first piece of advice I would give would be to have them let go of those emotions. I mean, those emotions are a choice that you make. You have a choice in how you are going to react to anything that comes into your life, whether it's good or whether it's bad. So, society would say that we have to be all mopey and down and, sad face when someone that we love has died. And we may feel that way, but that doesn't mean that we don't have to act that way. We can grieve without, you know, submitting to a depressed emotional state. The next thing, let me see, I had it on the tip of my tongue. Let me think a minute.
Did you take notes? Did you write it down?
Did
Come on now.
let me think. So what would I? Um, having things in place, verses that you can rely on, that you can fall back on, as far as whatever the situation may be. So God, Romans 8:28, God works everything together for the good of those who love Him. Look at this situation as this is something that, and this is going to be hard, but this is something that I needed in my life in order to learn something that I need to be a proficient in for a future point in time. So one of the, and I don't know if I mentioned this on our very first episode when we were talking about this situation with my husband and that question of why. I mean, that question of why comes up with everything, even with maybe some of the little things like, the whole day is just gone down the drain and you're going, why? You have to stop and say, okay, God, I may never know why, and that's okay. You've brought this into my life. I need to learn what is the lesson that you have for me to learn. And if you have to ask that every day, you ask it every day. If you have to ask it 50 times a day, what that does is it puts you in a different frame of mind. So when you're asking why, you're blaming somebody. You are putting yourself in a victim position, like with no control, because somebody else has made this happen. But when you say, what do you want me to learn? You are now in a position of control, and you can act accordingly, be it whatever the situation is. So that definitely would be the strongest lesson that I would want to convey, along with having tools in place that will help you when you just have those moments. And we all have those moments. We might be strong in faith, but we just get tired. We get physically tired. And I know for myself, when I get physically tired, that's when the doubts somehow they just can creep in much more easily than when I'm not tired. And having tools in place to help me in those moments, that's also key.
I haven't shared a lot about my faith walk too much, but I was surprised, to be honest with you, that when I was blindsided by something, very disappointing situation, thought I was doing exactly what God had asked me to do, had prayed about it for months and months and months, finally pulled the trigger, ended up in a situation that was a work situation that I felt like, man, I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And then was incredibly disappointed, shaken to my core, blindsided. And to be honest, Deb, I was surprised how my faith tanked in that moment. And I thought, wow, you have little faith. Like, you talk a good talk, but when the rubber hits the road, man, you doubt, and to be honest, for the last almost 10 years, that has been my struggle, is how I look back at that situation and think, man, that was a scenario where I was not prepared. Maybe I was praying every day in my journal and reading my Bible every day, but was I really putting on my armor? Was I really ready for what was to come? Was I ready to go into battle? Because it shook my faith to my core. And I look back at that situation and I think maybe I should have had more Christian women around me. Maybe I should have done this, that, or the other. And sometimes it's just out of your control. And I think we're really incredibly hard on ourselves too, you know? I mean, we have to remember we are human. And I think that's one thing that's been really difficult for me to digest. I think that for the longest time, I thought that my faith was, something beyond human. Well, the reality is it is. But when you put it on a human, those those qualities of just sin and all the things, they're there. I mean, we're not rock hard people. We can put on our armor, but it's still fleshy underneath there. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I just think it's so interesting how something can shake you um, violently and really rock your faith loose. And that's personally what I have been battling the last 10 years is just disappointment, anger, resentment, all the things that a good therapist can help you with. A good Christian therapist can come in and help you with the tools to rebuild.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where forgiveness comes in, though, too. And there again, I think a lot of people just don't realize that the power that they have within their own choice. We can choose to think about the disappointment. We can choose to constantly think about that situation, like, why did this happen? I made this decision based on all these hours of prayer and what I found in the Word and da 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 da. And sometimes we make the wrong decision. We have to accept mistakes are okay, and we learn through mistakes. We have to let go of the emotions that come with it. The forgiveness allows us to let go of the disappointment, it allows us to let go of the anger and any other negative emotion because it's like, okay, I'm letting this go. It's done. And then you can move forward. So choice. A lot of people just do not realize they have more power than they think, because it's like, why am I feeling like this? Do I want to feel disappointed, or do I want to feel excited because I'm learning something. I'm going forward. This bad thing is behind me. It's done, and I'm moving forward. Or they can just choose to mope in it that whole time. Philippians 4:8. So there again, Philippians 4:8 tells us to think on these things, any lists, whatever's pure, whatever's good, of good report. There's a whole long list. And there's a reason that that's there. It's because our thoughts, believe it or not, eventually are going to come out in our behavior. So when we're dwelling on the negative, that is going to impact our body physically, and it's going to come out in negative behaviors, with being angry at somebody, or disappointed, or just terribly depressed, and I don't even want to get out of bed. But if we're thinking on the good things, then we're forward focused with, this is what I want. You make the choice. This is what I want. This is the outcome I want for this situation. And you make that choice, and you make that decision, and you move forward by thinking on the good things, like, okay, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to recover. If you've been sick, I'm going to recover. You have to massage it to your own circumstances, but you have to step back and think about, what do I want? What outcome do I want? So that you can figure out what are those positives. And you can find hundreds of positives in the Bible that will get you through a difficult situation.
Well, I would never minimize the mental health crisis in this country, but I will say that when I was living a life of faith actively, my depression, anxiety, the things that I deal with, the things that are within me genetically, were at bay. I have to tell you that, because I have never experienced such emotion and such turmoil as I did when my faith wasn't active. I look back at 20 years of a strong faith and think, man, like, that was incredible. How was I so strong? Well, I was putting on my armor every day, as we talk about. And then the question of, like, why did I lose it, or whatever, in that moment, or when did I, or how did I get to this state of just despair? And the reality is, like I said, I would never, I'm a huge mental health advocate, especially in our area. We live in a mental health desert where it's really difficult for people to get the help that they need. But man, did I keep some things at bay when I was putting on the clothing before I left the house. And I think the other thing too is that, they say that when God closes one door, he opens another. And I think sometimes it's really difficult to have that hope. And we can get so lost in our emotions. It's a dark tunnel, especially if we grew up in an environment where there was a lot of negativity and nothing was positive and there was no spin. It's easy to go down that rabbit hole and just feel such despair. Woo! Did you hear that? That was my phone. It's easy to go down that rabbit hole and feel such despair and not be able to claw your way up and out of it. So I never want to, minimize that in any way to people, because it's a real thing. And doctors are needed, and that's why God gave them to us, thankfully. But putting on the armor and thinking about, like, truly guarding yourself against that doubt is probably one of the best things that I ever did as a teenager, and need to continue to do in my middle age. I think, life just gets more complicated and hard as we get older. Heck, marriage isn't easy. That ain't easy. That ain't easy. That's why they wrote The Power of a Praying Wife. And if you've read that book, it's not about him. It's about you. That book is all about, chapter after chapter is about, oh, what is it within me that I can change? Oh, what is it that I'm doing? And it truly is. It's about looking at yourself and the things that you can change and adjust your perspective so that when you do go into an argument, when you do go into a situation, you're prepared.
Yeah. That always reminds me of the Serenity Prayer, which I don't have memorized, but I just have the one key part is help me accept the things I can't change, and but what's the other
And the
part?
wisdom,
The
the
wisdom
wisdom.
to know the difference, and and realize that okay, I can't change this. This is a situation that's out of my control, but I can choose how I want to react. So there again, it's thinking on the right things. If you're focused on on the negativity, you're just going to go down deeper into that hole. And yes, I agree. It's wonderful. I've certainly spent my time in the counselor's office with counseling and have learned a lot from them. I'm glad they're there. I mean, my daughter's a therapist, so duh.
She needs to be a guest. Where's she at?
Yeah,
Where's she got some
definitely.
hours open for us?
I'm sure she does. She takes every Friday off, so she works. She has clients 4 days a week, and then she has the Friday off where she can recalibrate.
It sounds like
But
a good day to come on a podcast.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll reach out to her for sure. But I just have learned. I mean, especially in this past year, with the professional development program that I'm in, I've learned so much about the control that I have that I never thought I had. When we're growing up, all we're given are choices, like most of the time. All right. In my family, it was like, you can't do that, but you can do this or this, right? So, and most of the time, I was like, well, I don't like either one of those choices.
I choose C.
So, in essence, what happened in that case was our we weren't taught how to make a decision. And so a lot of today's people really don't know how to make a decision. They're just thinking, what are my choices here? But making the decision is so important. And like I said at the beginning, it just makes all the difference. It puts you in a completely different mental state. With it empowers you. At least that's what it does for me. And I know surely that it would do the same for others. And that sounds so simple, Jodie. I know it does. And it doesn't always come easy. We make mistakes, we fall back. It's like that's where you give yourself grace. It's like, oh, wow, I totally reacted to that situation in a wrong way. And you make adjustments. If you have to go back to that person and apologize, then do that. Wow, there's power in that. Definitely, for you. Now, how it affects the other person, you have no control over that. You have no control over other people. You can't make them change no matter how much you work at it.
Mhm.
You can't change anyone but yourself. So, definitely. And I love the way you when you brought up that book, Stormy O. Martin wrote that book, didn't
Yes,
she? Yeah. I've read
she
some of her
did.
stuff.
Yeah.
And it is when we change ourselves and how we are looking at a situation, we are going to or react, not react. We're going to act with more purpose when the next time something triggers us. Like, why did he have to leave the toothpaste where he did? Why can't he ever put the seat down, right? I mean, that seems to be a big one for most married couples. Why can't he put the seat down?
I don't know. I think I have my husband trained after 17 years. He's like, he knows better. But, when we were talking about the Serenity Prayer, I wanted to mention this, that it's definitely something, you know that it's in the AA book, it's in the AA program, Alcoholics Anonymous. But I was surprised that it's an Al-Anon phrase as well. I guess I don't know why I was surprised, but Al-Anon uses the Serenity Prayer. as a means to help children of alcoholics. And it is incredible when you start to think about, as a child, the things that you felt like were out of your control. When you start looking at the Al Anon program and using some of the advice that is in there, including the serenity prayer, it can be life changing for people. Anyone who has struggled with a parent who has alcoholism will know that there are some things you cannot control. And you have no choice but to accept those things that you cannot control and have the wisdom to know the difference. It's incredible. And, talking about a matter of faith, obviously those two programs are faith-based and they've helped thousands and hundreds of thousands, millions of people across the world. And they still have meetings. Everybody has meetings every day. I think there's a meeting every hour of every day in the world. It's pretty impressive. And now, thanks to Zoom, they're online and, Google Meet, they're having them online. But someone who has dealt with childhood trauma, like you definitely can find a lot of doubt in those situations. And, even as a child, Deb, like I look back at my first diary and I remember writing, why am I even here? Why? So from a very small child, I thought the first thing that I thought was doubt. The first question I asked God, and I think it's for a lot of people, is a question of doubt. Why am I here? What am I doing? What is my purpose? Why create me? What for what? And then it's such a journey, this life, to figure out, God, what do you want me to do in this step, in this step, in this step, in that step? And every moment you feel like every step can be a moment or a step of doubt. So having the tools needed. And what's really cool now is we can just Google that, right? We can say verses about having doubt about God. And your Bible app or your Google can bring it up. I mean, heck, AI is probably going to be our best friend when it comes to this stuff,
It
Hey,
can be.
AI, are you listening? Can you develop a Bible study about doubt? Because I need it. Um, So yeah, I mean, I think doubt is such a huge topic for so many people. I think it's an unsaid reality. I think when we're surrounded by people in the grocery store, we don't know what people are going through. You know how they say, you never know what someone else is battling. So somebody can brush past you and be rude. Maybe the one thing that they're battling that day is doubt. Why did they get this diagnosis? God, where are you? And where are you in the pain? So when you write your books, Deb, how does that go for you? Do you have topics of doubt woven within your novels?
Well, yeah, I mean, in the main character in her Inheritance series, she struggles with that very much so in the first book. I think even all the way through, there's moments of doubt in that, and doubt is definitely one of the main tools of the enemy. God never intended for any of that. When you look back at the Garden of Eden, the relationship, they had a direct connection with God, and everything was there. Everything was provided. They all they had to do was multiply, be fruitful and multiply, make it grow, more life. And when the fall happened, all that disappeared. So definitely there tends to be a natural negative bias to our DNA because of the fall. But that's why I keep talking about the tools. So we can, yes, I love the fact that I can Google. Now, what was that verse? I can remember just this tidbit, but I don't know where it was, and I want to go and read the whole thing. That's great. But having those kind of verses, when you deal with a specific problem on a pretty regular basis, like doubt, constantly doubting, is God really going to do this for me? Ahead of time, put together a list of verses that you can pick up, or put them on an index card and, tape it to your mirror, wherever you need to put it. Have those verses prepared ahead of time, because when you're in the depth of that doubt, when something happens, you're not thinking clearly. But if you have something prepared already, all you have to do is go pick it up and look at it, and help you focus your mind on, this is gonna work out. It's going to be okay. You can't have a problem without a solution. So, and they both exist at the same time. But when you're in the depth of the problem, you can't see the solution. So you have to have things in place that you can use right when you need them. I have a whole playlist on my Amazon Music account that I title Warrior. And that's a playlist that I play. I play it all the time, but when I'm struggling with some doubt, I will put that music on. It's songs like Raise a Hallelujah, The God Who Stays, No Longer Slaves, songs that I've heard on the radio that, oh man, those really spoke to me. And so I go find them on my Amazon Music account and I've put them in that playlist. And that's one of my tools. Having a list of verses that apply to my specific situations, that, that mountain, like Joyce Myers has talked about, you find yourself going around the same mountain all the time. You never seem to get over it. You just go around it all the time, come back to the same
Circling
problem.
the track.
So yeah, having those things in place is critical to help you get through. Otherwise, you can just get stuck. With the mental health crisis, I mean, my sister has spent a lot of time with counselors, and it seems like she just gets worse in some ways. It's never a sure thing that the way a counselor is going to bring treatment is going to help.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, which is sad to say.
Yeah, it's a whole, I was just having a conversation yesterday at my exercise class about how, not every counselor is the right counselor. Not every partner, like in life, friendship, is the right friend. I mean, you have to find the right fit for you, who's going to be encouraging and who's going to help you in those doubtful moments. I love those affirmative verses. This conversation has been so healing for me in a way, Deb, because it kind of reminds me, and I haven't talked about this stuff for a long time. I really haven't. So it is actually a very healing place for me to be, talking with you each week. But what's crazy is that in high school, I had those verses taped to my locker. I bring my Bible to school every day. And I'm just thinking about that time because I felt so strong in those moments when I first became a Christian. And those self-affirming verses got me through high school in the 90s. Why I would think that at 45, that same strength, that same foundation, wouldn't carry me and hold me, and God would be any less faithful, I don't know. It goes back to the beginning of our podcast. Life is difficult, and sometimes it throws you curveballs, and sometimes you get knocked off. I don't know how many times people told me, that the road is narrow. Don't choose the wide road, choose the narrow road. Well, sometimes, heck, you get knocked off that road in a car accident in a ditch. Then what are you going to do? It's true. It's true. But I'm learning, after a big hiatus of faith, to come back to the things that are true. Whatever is true. You can help me. What's the rest of that verse? Whatever is true, whatever is
Whatever's lovely, whatever is of good report. I don't have it handy.
These are the things. These are the things that we should think on.
Think on these things, yeah.
Yeah.
When you get knocked off the road and you're lying there in the ditch, you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you go forward.
Yeah. And I think some of us have a harder time than others. And maybe that's why we hold on to those friends who have been there and who are able to. I mean, I think you're a great example of that. My time in the ditch was probably a little longer than your time in the ditch. And that's why I marvel at your faith, what you went through as a young mom. And those are the people that you have to lean to in your life and call on. You know, when you do fall off the wagon, who is it that you can call? Who's your accountability partner? Who is it that knows that you need a good word and that you can lean on? So I think that those relationships are so important. Well, it's been awesome talking about this with you today. Is there anything that I left out?
No, actually, and as we were talking, I mean, I hadn't even thought about this when we started, but my book, Unshakable Faith, is definitely a book that I think would help people that are struggling in their faith. I wrote that book with the intent that I realized, I mean, how many, 30 some years, 40 some years of being a born again Christian. And it took all that time to learn all these different Christian principles, how to do all these different things. And I'm thinking, I wanted to be able to help others learn those things in a much shorter time than 30 years. So I put all of those basic Christian principles in that book called Unshakable Faith. And definitely I talk about doubt and I talk about the armor. So if you check it out, listeners, and definitely reach out to me on the Facebook page. Let's continue the conversation for sure. It's life.
It is life. Where can we get your book if we're interested? Do you have an Amazon?
Yes,
if
it's
we
on
search your
Amazon.
name?
It's on Amazon. And it's also on my website, themotivationaleditor.com. They could get a signed copy if they wanted a signed copy directly from me. So,
I'm going to be getting one of those. I'm going to be putting in my order for a signed copy because I do think that that's something that would help me. I mean, I don't remember the last time, Deb, that I picked up a book that I thought was not maybe just a self-help book, that was more. And that was directed towards my faith. Because I think when you go through times of doubt and you go through times of struggle, sometimes it's a little bit of work to get back. And sometimes we just don't have the strength to do it. Sometimes we need to come alongside others. And I think there's so many amazing authors out there like yourself that have books that could be helping us. And sometimes I think we choose maybe to go in a different direction when really what we need is to get back to basics. So great conversation today. Can't wait till the next one.
okay, great. Thanks for joining me. Thank you for listening to Reading Between the Lines. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Let's continue the conversation on Facebook. I'd love to hear how you're applying today's insights.